So I just want to welcome you all to our first National Academy of Construction Ask Me Anything webinar for the Spring 2025 semester. My name is Susan Bogus. I am an NAC member and chair of the Gerald May Department of Civil Construction and Environmental Engineering at the University of New Mexico. The theme for this semester is entrepreneurship in the design and construction industry. The National Academy of Construction was established in 1999 to recognize our industry leaders. An important purpose of the Academy is to share the collective knowledge and experience of our members to improve the industry. We have established the Ask Me Anything webinar series to help transfer knowledge of our members to our next generation of construction leaders, with this webinar providing a means to link past and present participants in the construction industry. Our sponsors this year are the University of Florida Rinker School of Construction, Arizona State University Del E. Webb School of Construction, and the University of Colorado at Boulder Construction Engineering and Management Program. The format for these webinars is simple. Our speakers will make a short presentation about a topic and their perspective on the industry, followed by time to answer your questions. If you haven't submitted your questions yet, please email them to nacama@austin.utexas.edu. And we've put this email address into the chat if you would like to send your questions. One student will be randomly selected from all questions submitted to win a $500 scholarship, which will be announced at the end of this event. So please think of and submit your questions if you have any. At this time, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. Tim McManus is a global expert with the development and delivery of major capital projects and programs, and is an advisor to companies and governments involved with the planning, development, design, and delivery of major infrastructure, transportation, urban development, resiliency, and sports facilities capital projects and programs. He has been a senior advisor to McKinsey & Company and was appointed to the faculty of Columbia University's School of Engineering as an adjunct associate professor in the Department of Civil Engineering. He serves as the industry advisor for the Global Leaders in Construction Management program at Columbia University and is currently a lecturer at Northeastern University's Graduate School of Engineering. In October 2023, Tim was inducted into the National Academy of Construction and was elected into the Construction Management Association of America College of Fellows in September 2024. Tim also serves as the managing director of TC McManus Consulting, LLC. So, Tim, welcome, and so glad to have you joining us today.
Well, thank you, Susan. Thanks for the time. Let me start out by saying and disclosing I'm a very bad advertisement for our industry because I'm a civil engineer by education, right? I have 5 children. Not one of them went into the field of engineering. So I'm not sure what that says about, what a good person I is as far as an ambassador or representative of NAC or whatever. But I always find that interesting that they love my frequent flyer miles. They love my points, but nobody's become an engineer. So, but it's interesting. But thank you for the introduction. It was very kind of you. I've been very blessed through my career to have a number of different jobs and roles. You touched on some of them. And, it's nice to look back on a career and to be able to say, here are some of the things I've learned and how can I translate that? Just as you said before, it's nice to be able to share that knowledge or that experience, answer questions, give advice in whatever way I can. So it's kind of fun to be at this stage of my career where I'm still actively involved, but I can help, those younger generations to advance and learn and kind of benefit from some of the things I saw, some of the things I didn't see, some of the things I wish I did differently. So.
Right. Well, great. Well, I'm going to get going then on some of our questions, and I'm going to actually start with a question related to what so this is, sorry, this is a question from, and I apologize if I don't get your name wrong, but Sunga Su has a question saying, what is your most valuable experience in providing consulting for delivery methods that allowed the project to eventually succeed?
Wow, that's a great project, a great question. When you look at project delivery methods, and what happens at the beginning, the most valuable stage of a project is in the planning phase, right? When you can take the time to plan it out, look at what works, what doesn't work, what's the experience of other similar projects, what has gone on before. And I'm always amazed when I talk with owners of projects at the early stage of their project. I ask them, what delivery method are you going to use? And they always say, oh, we're going to use design bid build or design build or CM at risk or whatever it might be. And I'll say, oh, that's great. Why for this project did you choose that method? And they always say, well, it's faster, it's cheaper, it's less risk or whatever. But it's like comments right out of a seminar, or a conference. And I say, no, no, no. For your particular project, for your specific project, what is the right delivery method? Considering land acquisition, your regulatory status, your design status, your taste for risk, all those things. And I find it amazing that a lot of people don't go through that diligence to understand and to learn about that. So one of the things that I did for many years when I was the director of global program management for AECOM, I dealt with a lot of owner organizations, mostly government agencies throughout the world, as they were developing a major capital program. And we would go through this question of what delivery method should we use for this project. And I got a sense that it was like very short-sighted. So what I developed was a whole methodology to go through called a contracting strategy assessment to look at what are all the factors of a project that would yield the optimal delivery method for that particular project at that particular time with that particular owner, with that particular set of regulatory effects and that design, etc. We applied this on many projects. The biggest project that we looked at when I developed this was I was the director for the National Infrastructure Program for the government of Libya back in 2009. And they had not done any major construction work in 30 years in that country. So we had to evaluate market conditions, risk conditions. What is it, a schedule-driven project? Is it a cost-driven project? And we applied all those practices to develop an optimal delivery method for the projects and the contracts that we awarded there. And I used this methodology as we went from there to other projects around the world, trying to look at those conditions. But you have to look at your particular set of priorities for the project that the owner has for the project. You have to look at the market conditions. You have to look at what is the supply chain looking to do. If you're looking to do design build in an environment that has never done design build before, you're in for a rude awakening, right? If you have an owner organization that has done design bid build for decades and decades, like most public agencies throughout the United States and many parts of the world, but all of a sudden you want to start a new delivery method without changing the training, the development of your people, you're going to have a disaster on your hands. So I think looking at those issues on a very comprehensive way and recognizing that not one methodology, not one project delivery method suits all, there's no one size fits all. It has to be a very diligent effort to look at what's the proper delivery method for your specific project. I always tell my students, I taught a course last week on delivery methods at Columbia where I teach. And I said to my students, I said, when you go evaluate a project or you talk to owners or you talk to contractors, I said, ask them what the delivery method was. And you're going to be shocked at how many times people will say, we just use this delivery method because that's the method we've always used. Right? It's like it doesn't make sense, but that's what they do. That's what happens all the time.
Wow, I'll have to remember that. That's a great way to introduce that in class.
Well, I'll give you another great example. When best job I had in my life. I've had many jobs, as anyone who looks at my LinkedIn profile will tell. I've had many different roles, worked for some of the best companies in the world. Best job I ever had I was the project director for the New England Patriots for the development of Gillette Stadium. And I was a hero to my 5 kids because they all got to get involved with a sports team. They all got to meet Tom Brady. So they were on the field. So it was great. So I was a hero to my kids. So it was great. But for that project, when I dealt with the ownership, the Kraft family who owned the team, when we were developing the project, I assessed, was this a schedule-driven project, a cost-driven project, quality-driven project? What was the risk appetite? And we took all that into concern. And what we did, we developed a design build team with only about 12 or 15% of the design completed in order to structure it in the most effective way, in the most rapid way, so that we could be assured that the stadium was going to open on time, our cost exposure was limited, and our risks were limited because we were a football organization. We were not a construction organization. We were not the New York MTA or Los Angeles DOT or some other agency that's used to deal with a lot of projects. So we structured that delivery method based on what our priorities were, and the project completed on time, completed on budget, and everyone was very happy.
Sounds like a great project.
That's the best job I ever had in my life, Susan.
All right. Next question. Kevin has a question. In the design and construction industry, how do you balance innovation with practicality? And the question continues, especially when launching a new venture, especially considering the high stakes and significant investments involved?
Wow, that's a good question. That's a really good question, Kevin. Here's a strange thing about our industry. The global construction industry represents about 13% of global GDP. So it's one of the largest ecosystems in the world. Right now, the annual spend on construction around the world is about $14 trillion. And it's going up to $20 trillion. McKinsey's forecast it's going to go up to $20 trillion a year by 2040. When you look at our industry, it's an incredibly fragmented industry. In the United States alone, a colleague of mine at Columbia University, Professor Ibrahim Odeh, did a study, and he determined that there were over 710,000 construction and engineering companies in the United States. 710,000, only 2% of them had over 100 employees. I always ask my students, when you look at our industry, how many of you want to be an owner of a construction company? And usually about 30% of my students' hands go up, right? And I say, okay, great. On a really good year, you completed the best year that you've ever had in your business. Your CFO walks into your office and says, Kevin, we've had the best year of our existence financially. What percent profit does your CFO tell you that you made? And my students are always like, oh, 10%, 30%, 25%. And when I tell them what the real numbers are, like 3 or 4, maybe 5% profit, they're astonished. So the question about innovation, Kevin, when you look at them, there are 2 problems or 2 challenges in our industry. The global engineering and construction industry has the lowest level of investment in innovation, technology, research, and development, the lowest level of any industry with the exception of agriculture and hunting. So we beat hunting, we beat agriculture. We're great, but every other industry blows us away. So the challenge with innovation in the industry is we have very low margins to pour back into innovation. So that's always a challenge for the CEO or the COO or the CFO of a company of how do I balance that? How do I value that value proposition of what this innovation is going to provide for me? And how can I really, believe it? That's one challenge. The margins are so thin, so very little money to go back into it. The second major challenge I think that we have, Kevin, is the people or the generation that has been running our engineering and construction companies have been my generation, not your generation. My generation did not grow up with technology. My generation did not grow up with innovation like your generation has. I assume, Kevin, you're younger than I am. I can probably assume that pretty well. So when my generation gets a value proposition, says, I'd like to invest X millions of dollars to develop an innovation strategy for our company, and adopted digital transformation, my generation looks at it like, really? Really? What am I going to get out of this? Because it's not inherent in my DNA. It's inherent in your DNA, so you understand that. So in order to develop that value proposition, it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of foresight. It takes a lot of trust. Some of the best examples of this, if you look at Bechtel, for example, Bechtel, for years, Bechtel was a father to son company, right? Privately owned. Bechtel did things their own way. They deliver projects fantastic. They're one of the best in the world. When Brendan Bechtel took over for his father, Riley Bechtel, Bechtel was a very structured company. They did things their own way. Brendan came in and took over as CEO in his mid-30s, and he transformed Bechtel to being an innovation company, a technology company, a research and development company, a digital transformation company, where they applied all these innovation strategies and they saw the benefits of it in terms of productivity savings, schedule savings, procurement savings. And they realized very quickly that if I invest in innovation, if I invest in technology, I'm going to see the returns of that X number of times. And they kept that going, and they've transformed how they do business. And I think that's one of the great examples in our industry. Skanska has done that. Turner has done that. Suffolk Construction in Boston has done that, where they've advanced technology because they've seen the returns. Our industry, Susan, you and I were talking before about this. Our industry is the most labor-intensive industry in the world, right? It's like we do things in such an arcane methodology. Productivity, one of the studies we did at McKinsey when I was there, showed that productivity has stayed flat in the United States in construction since World War II. Every other industry has soared. And because there are a whole variety of reasons around it, but that this labor dynamic, this is the way we've always done it. Don't tell me to change things. Don't ask me to use your technology. It was good for my father when he was doing the business. It was like all these stupid reasons for not changing, for not adopting innovation or innovative strategies is kind of crazy. So I'm hopeful that the next generation, the Brendan Bechtels of the world, the Kevins of the world who take over companies, they embrace innovation, they embrace technology change, and they bring it to the forefront because we need that for our industry. Our labor, latest report I saw from the AGC showed that the number of openings in construction jobs is astronomical. It's like 600,000 jobs that are open. So our labor resources are going down, but the projects we've never been busier. Our industry has never been hotter. So somehow companies that find a way to adopt an innovation strategy, to adopt a digital transformation strategy, to figure out ways to let technology help do the work of labor, they're the ones who are going to advance the fastest and the best.
Wow. Fascinating. I had not heard that story about Bechtel before, so that was fascinating. I'm going to pivot a little bit to entrepreneurship. Okay, it's several questions. Several people have asked questions about entrepreneurship. And so I'll start with a general one. Hoda has a question. What key skills or knowledge areas are crucial for success as an entrepreneur in this industry?
Wow, that's great, Hoda. Thank you for that question. As I said before, I've had the very good fortune of working for some of the largest and most famous companies in the world. I've also been on the board for very small companies, very developing companies with entrepreneurs. I'm on the board for a company called Tough Leaf, which is an entrepreneurial company that is advancing the cause of minority and women-owned businesses in the industry. I'm on the board of directors for the South Shore Autism Company, which is owned and founded by my daughter, who is a great entrepreneur. And as I've looked at a lot of these companies, some of the skills that I find that are necessary, number one, obviously you need to be technically proficient in your business in whatever that industry is, whether it's engineering, architecture, construction, technology. But I think a lot of the other things that are needed is this is all of our industries are relationship oriented. So how you develop people, how you get along with people, how you learn from other people is very key to your success. Are you a people person, or do you just put your head down and do work? The people who just put their head down and do work are usually not the most successful. The ones who can develop ideas, that can ask people for opinions, can seek outside opinions, can ask the tough questions and take advice and take counsel, those are the ones that tend to understand the benefits of that and can advance the most. Having an understanding about finance is good. Having an understanding about your technology is good. But understanding the market conditions, I get a lot of technology companies, a lot of entrepreneurs will pitch me their company, whether it's technology or their service, whatever it is. And within the first 5 minutes, they go right into the technology or right into the details of what they do. And I stopped them. I said, no, no, stop. I said, you got to stop. I said, I'm not the technology person. What you have to convince me is, what are you trying to solve for? What's the value proposition of what you're trying to do? Don't tell me what your technology is and how great it is and how you can tweak that golden screw to make it even better. Tell me what your value, what are you trying to solve for? What problem are you making my projects faster, cheaper, safer, higher quality? How do you do this? What problems do you understand that I have? And how does what you're going to do as an entrepreneur, how does that improve those elements of my existence, of my project, of my company? And once you can do that, and once you can show me that, then you can say, I can improve your productivity by 3 percentage points. I can improve your scheduled delivery time by 15%. I can lower the cost of your projects by buying materials and equipment in a much more effective manner. Now I'm going to listen to you. How you get there with your technology or whatever systems you use is secondary to me as a business person. But how you as an entrepreneur can explain what your value proposition is for me and how you're going to improve my business or my company or my project, that's what I'm going to listen to you.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for that, Hoda.
All right, we have a question from Amir. Amir asks, what career path would fit for a construction graduate who wants to become an entrepreneur eventually?
Wow. You think about that for a second, but a construction graduate who wants to become an entrepreneur, I think it was some of the best things that you can do, Amir. If you look at getting hands-on work, before you become an entrepreneur, you need to know the industry. So going to work for a leading construction company or a leading engineering company to understand what the business is. How do they do business? How do they operate? Get the nuts and bolts down. So going to work as a project engineer, as a field engineer, working on a design project, working on a construction project, you need to get that experience. You need to understand how the industry works, how the supply chain works, how the organization works, what the processes are. I teach a course at Columbia called Managing Engineering and Construction Processes, where we go through all the phases and facets of a major construction project. How do you manage it? How do you control it? How do you develop it? Having that understanding is ideal. If you look at Turner Construction, does a great job. Turner has a program. Turner is one of the most successful construction companies in America and one of the best. And one of the programs they have, when they hire a new graduate, for the first 2 years of your existence, you will be moved to 3 or 4 different jobs. In estimating and procurement, you'll be on the field, you'll be on the pre-construction team, all sorts of different teams, so that you'll see the different parts of the business. And then after 2 years, then you'll say, oh, I want to work in pre-construction, or I want to work in estimating, and you do that, and then you can move on. But you get a great sense of what the business is all about. So I think as you are part of the industry and seeing how the industry works, seeing how great companies work, then you can start to say, now I see how I could fit in as an entrepreneur if I started my own company. I think you also need to look to see what are the needs in our industry. And our industry has a lot of needs. As I said before, we're the most fragmented industry in the world. We have the poorest productivity gains in any industry. So the adoption, as I tell a lot of my students, looking at how you can take advancements in technology, in data analytics, in AI, in all sorts of measures that the existing generations in most construction companies or engineering companies don't really have, how you can advance that. That way you can have a knowledge of where the needs are and how I can apply that best. But I think getting that experience, don't go right out to become an entrepreneur right away, but go to work for a Skanska, for a Bechtel, for an AECOM, for a Jacobs, for a Turner, for someone like that. Get those stripes, get that experience, get that knowledge of the industry, look around, see what's working, see what's not working. You'll get a sense of here very quickly of, oh, I see the gaps here. I see how the antiquated methods that my company uses for procurement, for example. They're still using things, hard copies. They're still using things by fax. I can customize this and digitize this in a way that will save days and hours off this process. Put that away in your memory bank and use it. But you need to get that experience to see those issues up close. And that way, when you go off to become an entrepreneur, start your own business, you'll have done it from a point of view of experience as opposed to just theory.
Well, thank you. You make me feel, I'm thinking, what's wrong with faxes and hard copies? Um, no, I totally agree. Thanks. So we have a question by Nada. Nada is asking, what are the biggest challenges entrepreneurs face when starting a company in construction, and how can you overcome them?
Wow, that's a good question, David. Thank you for that. Biggest challenges. What I've seen when I was at McKinsey, we did a lot of work with tech companies. A lot of entrepreneurs would bring us in to help develop their value proposition, et cetera. As I said before about Amir's question, the biggest problem as an entrepreneur is a couple of things. Number one, as I said before, you need to develop your value proposition. What are you trying to solve for? What issue in the industry are you solving for? Are you making companies' lives better? Are you making projects better? So that's key, and I think that's foremost. The second thing I always tell companies that are just starting up, look at your competition. Who else is doing this? Please don't think that you've developed the golden egg. That is the best solution possible. That is so cool and so neat and so innovative. And it's really cool. Let me show you all my algorithms and how I got. If you don't look outside and see who else is doing this or who else has done it and how does yours compare to theirs, you're going to miss a very big boat and you're going to spend a lot of wasted time and effort. So I always tell companies in whatever way, shape, or form, not just entrepreneurs, but you need to look at the competitive landscape out there. You need to understand who else is doing what I'm doing. How successful are they? How unsuccessful are they? What are they doing well? What could they be doing better? How can I bring that to my knowledge base and then bring that forward here? In our industry, the global construction industry is very interesting. There's a Ben Flyberg from the University of Oxford, who talked about the 10 biases in project management. And one of the ones that he does that I love is the uniqueness bias. A lot of people, a lot of owners will feel that their project is so unique that everyone's going to want to bid on it. Everyone's going to want to work on it. And I tell people all the time, I tell owners all the time, it's not unique. I said, we've done it. Everything that we build, with the exception of some high-tech stuff right now, has been built before. We've done it before. So how do you look at that from a perspective as an entrepreneur that says, how am I going to make this different? We've built projects before, we've designed projects before. How am I, as an entrepreneur, going to change either that process or that delivery or that solution in a way that's going to fix a problem that's out there? So talking in plain speak, being very practical about that, I think is very, very key to how do you communicate your ideas so that people will listen to you and people will take that into account. And you really are doing it in an objective way, not in a way that's in competition with somebody else, but you're really, providing a value add.
Great. I'm going to go on to this question by Antoine. Antoine asks that I see you have worked in several big private companies, such as AECOM or McKinsey. What made you want to diverge and create your own company? And what were some of the challenges you faced during your transition?
Wow, that's a good question, Antoine. Thank you. Yeah, as I said before, I've been very, very blessed in my career. I started out, I was a civil engineer from Manhattan College. My inspiration came from my older brother, who was a mechanical engineer, who was 10 years older than I am. And so when I grew up, I wanted to be an engineer. And when I also wanted to be a college basketball player. So, I was 5'9", small little guy, but with a big, big vision, right? So I applied to Northeastern, I applied to Manhattan College, and I applied to Marquette. All had great engineering programs. I got into all three, and my godfather said to me, he says, Timmy, where are you going to go? I heard you got into all three schools. And I said, I'm not sure, Uncle Frank. I haven't made up my mind yet. So my father came over to me, put his arm around me, and he says, I don't know where you're going either, but I'm sending the checks to Manhattan College. I had a choice where I could apply. I did not have a choice where I was going to go. My father graduated from Manhattan College in 1934 as the first person in his family to go to college. He graduated with a degree in architecture. My uncle graduated in 56 with a degree in engineering. My brother graduated in 66 with a degree in engineering. So I was bound for Manhattan College. But the interesting thing, my father, um, he graduated in 1934 from Manhattan College. There were no jobs in engineering, construction, or architecture. He went to work as a carpenter's helper on the World's Fair in New York City, took the civil servants exam, passed it, became a fireman, and worked as a fireman in New York City for 35 years. But I always knew he had this best handwriting. He could draw charts. It was very neat and organized. So I was very fortunate that, to become an engineer, graduated from Manhattan College with a degree in civil engineering, started the nuclear industry. And I had my wife and I got married very young, and she was very supportive and said, look, wherever you want to work, we'll move wherever and we'll go. So I moved to Washington, moved to New Jersey, Michigan, back to New Jersey, London, Holland, back to New Jersey. And then we moved up here to Massachusetts, where I live now for the last 38 years. And every time when we move, I have different opportunities presented to me. And my wife was extremely supportive, and she says, consider other opportunities. I'll take care of our family. Our family is stable. And I was free to choose other opportunities. So that's why I was able to go work for other companies. But I got to a stage when I was with McKinsey, which was wonderful to work at, where I said, I think it's time to just do the things that I want to do. So that's when I retired and started my own company. And I was able to then say, I want to work on this project or I don't want to work on that project. I only want to work on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and not Monday and Friday. And now I've been in a situation where Columbia University asked me to join their faculty, which I was very happy to do. The dean at Northeastern University asked me to join the faculty there, so I teach there as well. I sit on 4 corporate boards, and I do my own consulting work now. And I enjoy it. I love what I do, and I still have time to play as much golf as I can. So, but I wouldn't have gotten to this stage to start my own company if I hadn't had all the experiences I had gained throughout my career, working for AECOM, working for Exxon, working for McKinsey, working for the New England Patriots. All those things built up my knowledge and my database that I'm now able to be out on my own. So it took a number of years, a number of experiences, and a lot of air miles to get there. But thank you for that question, Antoine.
Fascinating. So we've got several students who have asked sort of similar questions, so I'll try to paraphrase them. And it has to do with starting up a new company. So if someone wants to start up a new company, how do construction companies raise capital, for example, to begin a new company?
That's a great question. That's interesting. The construction companies or engineering companies raise capital in a number of different ways. As I said before, just as a backdrop, the global construction industry is one of the largest ecosystems in the world. It's at 14 trillion now, growing to $20 trillion. So we see with population growth, we see with urbanization, we see all these trends are great signs for our industry, right? Because we're going to continue to grow. The idea of starting a new company, there's never been a better time to be in our industry. The challenges with starting a new company are many, but I always find it fascinating that two of the companies that I advise now are private equity companies. Private equity companies are making major investments in engineering and construction companies in a very significant way because they've seen our industry in a couple of perspectives. Number one, it's a growing industry. Our industry is going to continue to grow. The supply chain does not meet the demand. There's more need than there is supply. They also see it as an industry that can be improved. The margins in our industry are so thin, these people can go in there, improve it with technology, with organization, with people, and improve those margins in a very significant way. So there's a lot of private equity money being put into new engineering and construction companies. There's a lot of private investment from outside sources, from foreign entities that want to invest because they want to buy into the U.S. construction market, because the U.S. construction market is the biggest construction market in the world. So a lot of foreign entities see that as opportunities, so they're willing to make investments. Lenders are very interested in the industry, but the challenge with taking investors on are the margins are so thin. So you need to look as an entrepreneur or a startup of a new construction company, what's different about what you're going to do? What's different about how you're going to operate? Please don't tell me you're going to be one of the 98% of the companies of our 710,000 in the United States that have less than 100 employees, and you're just going to be another mom and pop shop and just do things as it comes up. Say, I'm going to do things differently with a technology bent, with a digital strategy, with some different formulation of a service offering that is going to be different than others. Then you'll be able to attract investors. Then people will stand up and take note because you're doing something different. Our industry is a very sleepy, very tired, industry that does not accept change very well. Everyone sees the big names when you read Engineering News Record. You look at the Bechtels, the Skanskas, the Turners, the AECOMs, Jacobs, WSPs of the world. Those are all the well-known companies. But all the mid-market firms, all the small firms, all the subcontractors, all the suppliers that are out there are in need of such restructuring and doing things differently. So how can you learn from them and how can you do something differently that you're going to be, faster, cheaper, more efficient, higher quality in some way, shape, or form? That way people will be attracted because investors and lenders and private equity groups see the value of our industry, see it continuing to grow. It's not going to exist in 10 years. It's certainly going to grow. They want to make investments. The private equity groups that I advise, they're always looking to purchase new companies because they see this as a great market. So I think you'd be surprised if you could develop a great strategy or a great solution about why your company is so different. You'll attract attention and you'll attract funding.
Thank you. I have maybe somewhat of a follow-up question to this, and I'll try to phrase it. So Daria is asking, so let's say you've started your company. What criteria do you use to evaluate whether it's time to scale up and grow or tackle a new niche of construction services?
Wow, that's a good question, Daria. Thank you for that. I think there's a couple of things. I think, one of the things you'd be surprised at, Daria, is when you look at companies, when you look at especially small companies, small to mid-sized companies, as I have many years for now, and you ask them, say, when you sit there with the owner of the company or the CEO or the founder of the company, say, what's your strategic plan for the next 5 years? And many of them will look at you and say, what do you mean? Oh, well, we want to continue to grow. I said, no, that's not what I asked. I said, what's your strategic plan? What do you want to be? How do you want to grow? What do you want to develop? from a geographic standpoint, from a market sector standpoint. And when people say that they want to grow, I always question that. I say, why do you want to grow to a certain size? You know, is that a sign of success, or can you be a $20 million company and consider yourself a success? So when you look at how do you scale up or what the right times are, go back to what your core principles are in terms of what your strategic plan is. Mirror that with what the market is doing. So if you have a strategic plan and a desire to grow, which is very healthy and very good and very commendable, but if the market that you're serving is not growing, or the market that you're serving is changing, and you don't fit that, you don't fit into that change, you're going to have a problem. You're going to hit your head against the wall. So it's essential that you look at how the market is operating, what the forecast for the market is. How is that going to affect your business? You have to look at how the other companies in your space providing the same services, how are they doing things? What are they doing differently? So you can learn from them. I did a growth study last year with a colleague from Columbia University for a foreign company that wanted to grow its presence in the United States. And we did a growth study to show where the markets were, where the markets were shrinking, where they were growing, et cetera. So for example, if you're a large construction company and you say, we want to grow our business, you know, what are the hot markets? So the hot markets right now in the Southeast, New York City, the New York City region, and the West Coast, and Texas and Florida are the hot markets. So if you're in Kansas City, Missouri, and your desire and your strategic plan is to grow my base in Kansas City, Missouri, but you don't want to take advantage of those hot markets, but you're going to be limited by what you do. So I think you have to look very carefully at what the forecast for the market is, what the forecast for your particular level of services, what your competitors are doing, how are they growing or how are they not growing, and then see what that market could do, and then see how much you could do. But you know, it's a combination of so many different factors that you know it's not just one or the other. And if you do all those, then you'll get into a situation when you've established your foundations well for your company, you're comfortable and you're confident in your financial capabilities, your organizational capabilities. To scale up doesn't just take money, but to scale up is going to take people. And the biggest challenge that all of my companies that I deal with now in the industry are people. How do I get effective people? How do I get people I can trust to run a new business line or run a new office for me in a very effective way? And that's very challenging for a lot of companies right now.
Wow, great. So I've got one more question here, and I'm going to, questions from Ezgi, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but I'm going to kind of leave it open-ended for you to let us know. What do you see as emerging trends? Sorry, what do you see as emerging trends in entrepreneurship in the construction industry?
Wow. Okay. Emerging trends in entrepreneurship. So let me go back to what I said before, Edsky. Is Edsky?
Yeah.
It's a great question. It's all been wonderful questions. People have been so thoughtful with these questions. It's been wonderful. The emerging trends that I see in our industry for entrepreneurship in our industry certainly deals in the technology realm. You know, as I said before, our industry has had the lowest level of investment in technology, research and development, digital solutions than any other industry by far. So we've seen a tremendous growth in companies providing technology solutions for all phases of our industry, in the planning phase, in the design phase, in the construction phase, operations and maintenance phase. That's where I see the biggest change coming about. Now with the advent of AI, you know, in our industry, you know, Susan, you and I would agree that every 3 to 5 years, we need to have a new buzzword in our industry, right? Sustainability, alternative delivery, you know, whatever, by partnering, you know, all sorts of different things. So now AI is at the top of, you know, of the list of new buzzwords and new technologies. And everyone wants to have a, you know, a new policy about AI. If I look at how labor intensive our industry is, the use of AI has so much possibility to improve our performance, to improve our productivity, to improve our profitability from these labor-intensive activities, whether it's reviewing a contract, reviewing a proposal, reviewing a design for quality, for changes, for errors, for omissions. If you could apply an AI strategy around something like that, all of a sudden you're transforming how we do business in a very significant way. Great example, Susan, you and I grew up in an era where if you would do a survey for a project, you get a survey team out there and set up their theodolite and they would go to business, and in a week or two, they'd come back with a report, right? Now, the use of drones and doing, surveying by drones is done in a matter of hours, and it comes back with a very effective report. So what I'm trying to say, Eski, is, developing entrepreneurship around technology for our industry, you have to analyze what are the pain points in our industry? How can I adopt solutions that will improve our performance, our productivity, our time to market, our scheduling, our costs, our procurement, all those things. We are in such need of this in a significant way. The big companies, the AECOMs, the Bechtels, all the ones that we've talked about, they will develop their strategies. They're implementing them now, but they're the minority of the company. They might have a big financial share, but the number of mid-size and small-size companies that are out there that have no resources to analyze the market for technology or for how can I adopt a solution that can improve my performance, they don't have any capabilities like that. So if you can look at that and help them scale up and help them adopt certain things that are going to improve their performance and their bottom line, you'll be as busy as you want to be.
Wow. Well, thank you. And thank you for bringing back memories. My very first internship for when I was studying civil engineering was on a surveying crew one summer.
Good experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great. So we have a winner of our scholarship. So our scholarship winner today is Daniel Hickel at the University of Florida. So congratulations, Daniel.
That's great. Congratulations, Dan. That's wonderful.
And before we say goodnight, I'd like to say a special thank you again to our sponsors, the University of Florida Rinker School of Construction, Arizona State University Del E. Webb School of Construction, and the University of Colorado at Boulder Construction Engineering and Management Program. Tim, I'd like to thank you very much for your time and sharing your insights with us. And for all the students, I look forward to seeing you at our next Ask Me Anything webinar on March 25th.
Thank you, Susan, for having me. This was fun.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care now. Bye.